That was weird. So The People Under the Stairs tells the story of a young kid who breaks into the house of his landlords to steal priceless possessions and finds out that they are actually holding cannibals in their basement. Welcome back to the Wes Craven review series, everybody, and now we are at 1991's The People Under the Stairs. Now, this is one that I actually have seen quite a few times. I think this was my 4th time watching it, and it was still one that I was looking forward to checking out because it's been years, and this is a movie that I would actually go out on a limb and say, aside from the obvious choices of Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream, this seems to be one of his movies that I hear the most fan praise for. The most people that I have talked to regarding Wes Craven's filmography, this is one that they always throw out as one of their favorites, one that's underrated, one that should be celebrated more. And while some of these movies that I've reviewed thus far, I can watch them and I can instantly just understand why the reception is the way that it is, why people don't like this movie or why people like it a certain way or why it's a little bit mixed or a cult response. This is the only one thus far where walking into it, I still just had gigantic questions about why do people love this movie so much? The idea for the story came to Wes Craven when he saw a news article about a couple of burglars that broke into this house in LA and then inadvertently led the police to find out that there was actually children being held captive inside that house. And so he took that basic premise and just weirded it out to fucking 11. And you have cannibalism, you have kidnapped children, you have sadomasochism, you've got gimp suits, and this movie just goes for it. So did it finally click for me? Do I finally understand why a lot of you Wes Craven fans just adore this film? Or am I still on the other side of the fence looking in going, this is just way too weird for me? Starting off with the positives, I do appreciate the fact that this movie just goes for it. It goes balls out. It just takes everything to 11. It throws all these wild ideas in there and it fully realizes every single one of them. This unfortunately was another one of the very few movies that Wes Craven got pretty much full creative control over without a lot of studio interference. It's surprising to find out how many times in his career that was not the case. And so when you let him off the leash, when you let him do the exact movie that he was trying to do, there is a lot of creativity here. That's one of the main things that we've always valued Wes Craven for in his career is that creativity, either with the plot or with the way that he executes it as a director. And so all of the different wild concepts we go for here with the sadomasochistic couple, the fact that they end up being brother and sister, this family lineage that's really weird and creepy, keeping all of these kidnapped children in the basements and turning them into these nocturnal cannibals, everything, even the traps and the way that this house works together is almost like a big saw trap. Everything that he goes for here, he goes for it. I also think that there's a certain amount of intrigue and just by default, you have a lot of interest in where this movie is going to go. Even if you're not fully on board for it or even if it's not completely your cup of tea, you almost can't take your eyes away from it like a car wreck because every single time you feel like you get an idea where the movie's going, it introduces something else that is just totally batshit and fits right along with how weird the thing has been thus far. I mean, it starts off, it's very deliberate with commenting on classism and commenting on, you know, the different financial structures that we had in society, still have in society, and you have these very underprivileged people trying to break into the house of these very overprivileged people, which quickly leads to a lot of death and blood and, you know, very feral dogs and things that on face value you would expect with like a thriller type concept like this. And then it just goes bananas. There's weird contraptions inside of the house, there's little tunnels, and there's feral people walking around that are trying to help out this kid. There's a grown-ass woman that is kept as like this little 3-year-old girl in a little doll's dress, and it's so off-putting, but you can't stop watching it because every single thing just gets compounded with something else. And I briefly spoke on it, but the movie is very interesting the way that it tries to make a commentary on certain social injustices and things like classism and financial classism and the different race relations to a certain degree that come along with that, where you very much have the black community kind of focused in on as the protagonists here, where you have the two very evil white people as the antagonists of the film. There's also, which I would have never picked up on, had to do a little bit of research, a lot of commentary regarding Reagan and Reaganism and Reaganomics, I guess, and him and his wife are kind of what these two antagonists are modeled after very directly, which would have been obvious to anybody in that era. Obviously somebody that never was alive while Reagan was president. Didn't quite land for me, but it is very interesting to find out that there's also that extra layer of political commentary in there. And it is worth commending, with all of the crazy ideas that Wes Craven is already exploring just on the surface value horror of this movie, that he's able to put a lot of things that you can kind of dig through the rubble and find other things to talk about and discuss with the film. I think performance-wise, everybody does their job here. There's not necessarily a character that I personally gravitate to or love or would hold in any kind of like an iconic regard, but for the tone that they are going for, I think every single person, especially the two antagonists, really do go for it. They turn everything up to 11. They're batshit crazy and kooky and weird and intimidating and disgusting all at the same time.
Remember not to bruise her face.
Bad girls burn in hell.
Of course, Fool, very easy to have a kid in a situation like this become a very sympathetic protagonist. One character that I did really enjoy, though, is Roach. Roach is one of the cannibal captive children that actually breaks out and starts to tunnel his way throughout the house and has all these little ways that he fucks up the works for them and antagonizes our antagonists, and certainly helps the two victims in this situation. And his story ultimately falls to a bit of tragedy, but just as a silent character, because he's got his tongue cut out, he's a character that you do enjoy. He's just got this weird quality to him that you kind of can't take your eyes off of. That's something that's like a through line in this movie. It's like, it's a car wreck. You can't take your eyes off it. It's just so interesting. Now moving on to the negatives, and unfortunately, fourth time was not the charm. This movie is just too weird for me. I understand it's so batshit crazy and just so wild that if that type of storyline, that type of tone really does appeal to you, I could see why this is something that you would treasure. It's just too weird for me. It's too goofy for me. It's too out there. Even the performances, which I appreciate the fact that they go balls out with the two antagonists of, what do they call them, man and woman? Mommy, daddy, those two guys. They're off-putting. They're off-putting and they're strange, and there's a point where he stabs through the wall and accidentally kills his dog, but he thinks that he kills Fool, and he's like, I got him, I fucking got that motherfucker.
Oh, I got him, 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 I got him.
Prove it.
Keep in mind that I'm a very tough crowd when it comes to horror comedies. Very, very, very rarely do I really love a horror comedy, because for me, when you have a horror comedy, it either still needs to scare you, but have like this self-aware tone throughout it, or it needs to genuinely make you laugh while just being in this dark, fucked up situation. And I don't fall into either of those camps with The People Under the Stairs. I don't really find myself laughing at all of this. I just find myself kind of turned off and perturbed at all the weirdness that's going on. So while on paper, when you add all these ingredients together, it sounds like a movie that could easily, there's a version of it that would be very appealing to me. This version has never really appealed to me. And to that point, after we got the new iteration of It, this has become my main answer for what movie needs a remake. We always get these classics remade. We always get these movies that we love and that we think are these shining gems that somebody wants to come in and do something different with. And very rarely does that succeed with people, especially fans. But there's so many movies like this that are like cult classics or have a bit of a mixed response or are really for some people but not quite for others, that have a lot of potential in them, that I would love to see a modern filmmaker come in, take that core concept and do something different with it. And not that I'm a psychic, but I actually thought Jordan Peele, in his little sudden rise in the horror world, would be a really interesting choice to take on this property, and apparently he's at least producing a remake of this. So I'm gonna play the fucking lottery next time this shit happens. And my final negative, despite the fact that this movie does stick to practical effects, and for the gore scenes that we do get, it's pretty effective. There's one where he's literally carving up a body and throwing scraps to the cannibals. I don't feel like it's gory enough. For a movie that's this crazy, that has these wild of concepts, that introduces cannibals and these basement dwellers, it felt like the movie didn't go as dark as it could have. It didn't go as far with the gore as it could have, and maybe that's one of the big missing elements for me, is that while this is a very disturbing and fucked up premise, and a lot of ideas here are just disgusting, it's just that on the concept level, not necessarily on the visual level. All in all, guys, I don't really know what else to say about this one. I've given it multiple tries. I really wish that I could be a fan of this one, but this one is just honestly not for me. The People Under the Stairs, there's a lot of things about it that I can appreciate, that I certainly understand why it appeals to a lot of horror and a lot of Wes Craven fans, but it's just too out there for me. So if you're a fan of Wes Craven and you want to see him go fully off the leash and explore a lot of wild concepts in a movie, definitely check out The People Under the Stairs. I don't think it's necessarily worth being in your collection though, so check this thing out online and stream it. So what do you guys think of The People Under the Stairs? Are you a fan of this one, always been a fan of this one, or are you somebody that just can't quite get behind it? And do you think that this is a movie that could benefit from a modern remake? Let me know all your thoughts down below, guys. Please like and share this video. Hit that subscribe button if you are a fan of Wes Craven. Next up, we got Vampire in Brooklyn, and then I think we only got maybe 4, 5 movies left, and then we're gonna be done with this review series and get that giant-ass ranking out of the way, and then who knows what director might be next. Hit the subscribe button and find out. Thank you guys for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.